With us now, head to New England, game of the week, maybe game of the season. This was great. Cowboys, Patriots. We picked this one up in overtime. Pats couldn't quite get it done against Dallas, who found CeeDee Lamb for the game winner in overtime. And for CeeDee Lamb, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a wild win for Dallas, but not all good news after the game. We saw Dak Prescott walking to and from the podium in a protective boot on his right foot. He suffered a calf strain on that last play. He's going to undergo an MRI today. He did downplay the injury afterwards, saying, quote, "I'm fine." Mike, you starting to believe, though, that the now 5-1 Cowboys are good enough to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Jen, I'm starting to believe it. I mean, we're looking at a team who, in all 3 phases of the game, play hard, they play fast, and have a great understanding of what's going on out in the field right now. And when I watch the Dallas Cowboys offense, I think they're going to score on every possession. And I can't say the same as watching them last year. You know, so this feels like an offense that's different. I think it is different. The defense is playing fast, flying around. And they're learning how to win, you know, and that's important. As a team, you got to learn how to win. You got to play in games that's right. Tough games, hard fought, going to overtime, and learn a lot about yourself and your character. So this is going to be another step in the right direction for the Dallas Cowboys, obviously, in the NFC. It's a lot of good teams, the Bucs, Green Bay, but they right there in the mix with some of the best teams in the NFC right now. And I think they're going to continue to get better. Hopefully this is not a significant injury for Dak. And I look forward to seeing where the Cowboys go from here. But right now, you know, sitting at 5-1, they're in a great position.
Yeah, and it's like the reverse of what we were talking about with the Browns. Sometimes the Thursday game comes at the worst time. Sometimes the bye week comes at the best time. If Dak has a calf strain, no better time to have the week off, rehab it, and be back in 2 weeks. I totally echo what Mike said about the Cowboys offense. Cowboys offense right now looks as good as any offense in football. They are precise. Yesterday, it felt like every time they didn't score, it was surprising. They had a touchdown stolen from them, by the way. I know Wildes is going to do a moral victory Monday at some point about his terrible Patriots, but, well, they did. I mean, he scored on 3rd down. I mean, he scored. It was a quarterback sneak. He scored.
I agree.
The fourth down was a fumble, but it shouldn't have been a 4th down because he scored on 3rd down.
Literally, he did.
The Cowboys, they just have too many weapons, and CeeDee Lamb is a revelation. Amari Cooper is not the number 1 receiver on this team. It's CeeDee Lamb. And, guys, what would Trayvon Diggs have to do at this point to not win Defensive Player of the Year? Miss 2 months? Right. He still might win it. He is so spectacular. And I hear people like, oh, he got beat on the next play. Well, the next play, the safety screwed that up. But that play, to win a game with a pick 6 or potentially win a game with a pick 6, it's just phenomenal. So I obviously have major issues, Broussard, and we can get into them more later, about Mike McCarthy's game management. In 4 of their 6 games this year, he has made inexplicable choices that could have cost the Cowboys. And I think in the playoffs, when the margins are this thin, when you're playing good teams, not terrible teams like New England, it might cost them and likely will cost them. But talent-wise, it's hard to find a team you say is better than them. And a lot of that does have to do with the fact Dak Prescott is playing as a top-flight MVP contender. Dak, Kyler, Lamar are all right there, and Dak deserves all the credit in the world for coming off that injury. Brady, yes, absolutely. I didn't mean to exclude him. Brady as well. And as he looks like he's never missed a beat. In fact, he looks better than he's ever looked, Broussard.
No, look, I'm with you and Mike, Nick. I don't have tears like Nick does, but the Cowboys have moved up a notch on my list because going into the season, I firmly expected them to win their division. I expected them to have a very good record because of their schedule. And so I thought they'd make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game, but I didn't consider them legitimate contenders to reach the Super Bowl. They're there now. There's no question about it. They're great on both aspects of the offense. Not good. They can run the ball, but they're great passing it. No, they are great at running the football, and they are great at passing the football. The defense obviously is much improved. And Nick, I thought yesterday's game, a lot of people might say, wow, New England 2-4, you had trouble beating them. That was, like Mike said, that was a great learning experience for these Cowboys. It's a game you won, but yet you can still learn a lot from. Number one, they got to shore up the penalties. I want to ask you about that, Mike. They had 12 penalties for like 115 yards or something like that. That's a big reason the game was close. That and the turnovers in the red zone, so they can figure those things out and fix those mistakes. But also Trayvon Diggs. I thought it was a great learning experience for him. Because obviously, like Nick said, he had the great pick six, looked like it was going to win the game. The very next play, he gets burned. All right, so obviously he's been picking off every quarterback he's faced. This was a nice dose of humble pie that I think can keep him grounded, and I think it was a good learning experience. But, Mike, I want to throw this at you, Mike. The Cowboys are one of the most penalized teams in the NFL. When you're in a locker room on a team that's penalized that much, like what is the issue there? Is it on the coach? Is it on the players? Is it a lack of discipline? Like why? What is the problem with teams that are really heavily penalized?
You know, I think it's more so on the players. Like, we understand the game and we know the rules and regulations within the game. And you got to play within the framework of the rules and regulations. And sometimes we get outside of that. We get so caught up in the moment that we lose sight of the little things. So, you know, I think it's important that they go back and watch this on film. It's always cool to go back and watch everything on Monday and try to get it corrected. But when you see a consistent, you know, problem in terms of penalties, then the coaches got to step in and they got to start teaching the little things over again and make sure that it don't become redundant, because it can become a problem and you rather address it now than later on down the road, you know, come postseason.
Okay, we all this is to all of America in sports media and particularly the people on this program. We either have to decide if the Cowboys are great or the Patriots are terrible, because both can't be true. If the Cowboys beat a terrible team, that means they're not a great team. And if they're Super Bowl bound for getting past the Patriots, admit that the Patriots are good. And you know, don't just shake your head, Nick, right? I'm going to read you some numbers, which you love so much. Here's the thing why I don't think the Cowboys are as good as everybody says. Time of possession, 39-26, Cowboys win. These are all positive Cowboys things, but I'll take you on a little ride. Yards, 567-335, over 200 more yards. First downs, 25-9 for my poor Patriots. They're not a Super Bowl team because they racked up all these great numbers, but penalties and bad clock management from Mike McCarthy will end up limiting how far they go. They don't look like an amazing team. They barely got by the Patriots, which, if I listen to everybody else, are not a great team. So if you squeak by not a great team, excuse me if I'm going to hold the confetti bags before I start raining them down in Dallas for post-Super Bowl.
Wilds. All right, so a couple things. One is, you don't have to listen to us about the Patriots not being a great team. You can just look at your phone or computer or newspaper and see where they rank in literally anything or how many wins they have. It's not like, so we're not just spreading this narrative that a team that's 0-4 at home stinks. We're just telling you they stink. On the Cowboys side of things, I do think, and Mike, I didn't do this as strongly as I did it in the first segment, in part because I like how much you sound when you say Mike McCarthy. Just the accent comes out so perfectly. It would be sad if that was gone from our lives. But I do think Mike McCarthy is a hindrance to them right now. And I want to attack, because penalties and clock management, that's the head coach. Like, I understand Mike, because he was a player, is taking the responsibility. That's on us. But usually, what do we say? Oh, the Patriots, all those years, no penalties. Why? Great coaching. I would argue last night, despite the Cowboys outgaining them almost 2-1, it was close because there was such a coaching mismatch. One of the reasons that I think they should consider elevating Kellen Moore is someone's going to make him a head coach next year. So I want to ask you this. How much of Dak's progression and this offense being so explosive do you give Kellen Moore credit for? because I would be worried if I'm Dallas that if we don't make him the head coach, somebody's going to make him the head coach, and what that would do to Dak in future years if he has to change offensive coordinators again.
Oh, for sure, Kellen Moore is not going to be with the Dallas Cowboys next year, and I'm pretty sure that Dak is probably going to be one of the guys vouching for him to stay, but it's just not realistic. Kellen Moore is put in the work, and I think him paired with Mike McCarthy, two offensive minds, and if you think about what Mike McCarthy has been able to accomplish, whether with Aaron Rodgers or even my cousin Aaron Brooks in New Orleans, you know, he knows offense. You know, he understands the offensive side of the ball.
You hear that,
more than probably 80% of the coaches in the game. So, you know, him combined with Kellen Moore, you know, coming together, putting game plans together is just a recipe for success. And then Dak learning each and every week, each and every day, having his own input. You know, it's a three-headed monster right now, and it doesn't get any better than that. I remember my time in Philly, just being with Marty Morningwig and Andy Reid. We was able to come up with a lot of plays that, you know, was effective. And, you know, doing it together is easier than one person doing it by himself. So, you know, Kellen Moore deserves a lot of credit. Mike McCarthy deserves a lot of credit as well as Dak.